quite clearly you can see from the results that we're getting, we are doing an awful lot of things right. And I must say that Tourism Ireland are really leading the way in terms of building a very, very strong and robust industry here on the island of Ireland. And also looking at the figures, the 11.2 million for the island of Ireland and 9.6 here for Ireland, they're really, really strong figures, massive figures. And also, of course, that statistic of 260,000 in terms of employment as well, that really is mind-boggling when you think about the sheer number of households, the sheer number of individuals and families that affects, and that's a really positive statistic. So as the year 2018 draws to a close, we look forward to 2019. I'm very positive about the year ahead, absolutely conscious of the challenges that exist. Brexit, of course, being the one that is foremost in our minds, but of course there are always challenges, and of course there is always the risk of shock events as well that we don't foresee. And that's why I think it's critically important that the fundamentals in Irish tourism are right. I'm quite confident that they are. There's an excellent collaboration between our department, Tourism Ireland, and our development agency, Fáilte Ireland. I think that collaboration is very strong with industry, and with all of those ingredients working together, I think it leads to a very, very good results, and it augurs very well for the future as well. So I would be confident of 2019 being a very strong year for us. As Niall has referred to in his presentation, while the threat of Brexit is a very real one and a significant one, that said, we have worked very hard over the last 2.5 years to try to mitigate any of those risks and those threats. And as of yet, we still aren't quite sure or quite clear as to what Brexit is going to look like on March 29th, but we have done our best to work with all of the stakeholders, the partners involved, through our Brexit response group in particular, but also in other ways to ensure that we have the most robust possible scenario here in terms of dealing with what may come. I suppose overall, in terms of the actual ability for us to market the brand that is Ireland, I was delighted with the outcome of the budget in relation to what we've been able to give to Tourism Ireland in additional funding. It represents 13.5% over 14 months, actually 10 million of extra, 13.5 million over 14 months, 10 million of extra funding in respect of marketing for 2019, and that's significant funding. That's really, really strong funding. That moves us from buying power of 25 million up to 35 million in 2019. That's a big increase, and it's clear to see from the new content that's been created that we have fantastic product to sell, but we haven't always been able to sell it to enough people over the last number of years since the economic collapse, and now at least we're in a position to get back into that space, and I'm excited about that. And the new content I think is really excellent. Whoever came up with the heart monitor idea, I don't know, but I think it's a really fantastic one. I love that element of that particular campaign, and it builds, I think, as well, very much complements work that we've done earlier in the year. The Wonders of the Wild Atlantic Way campaign kicking off the year, I think, was a really positive one in Britain. Reached 10 million Britons in 6 main urban centres in Glasgow, Edinburgh, Birmingham, Liverpool, Manchester and London. And the Call of the Wild campaign that we kicked off in the autumn, again, very positive one, but also not just relying on Tourism Ireland and Tourism Ireland's network in the traditional media, but also as well empowering local communities to try to help to sell their own localities and their own communities from the ground up, and empowering those communities to harness the power of social media as well, which I think is critically important given the massive potential that's there in terms of our global reach as well, and maybe getting into the non-traditional markets and people that we wouldn't traditionally be marketing through our mainstream media, but through social media, who would be connected to Irish people. I think that was a really positive one, and we're only getting to see that getting started at the moment, but we know from the take-up and from the figures that we've got on the Call of the Wild campaign that there was huge interest from local communities, particularly the people living along the Wild Atlantic Way as well, and that's very encouraging to see. And that was an excellent collaboration, I think, between local communities and Fáilte Ireland, Tourism Ireland and the Department of Transport, Tourism and Sport as well, and we were absolutely delighted to support that. So moving ahead into 2019, one of the very, very exciting things, and Niall referred to it there and gave you a good graphic in his presentation, was our level of connectivity. We have a completely different map now in relation to connectivity than we had back in 2011. And you look at North America in particular, and you look at 2013, our target of 1 million overseas visitors from North America, and this year we've broken the 2 million mark. That time, less than 10 gateway cities. This time we're heading for 25 in 2019. That's a really, really important component of the success story, I think, that has been Irish tourism in recent years. And we need to not only work with those partners in aviation to support those routes, but also to drive on for new routes as well. I see no reason why we can't even build that figure further than 25 in 2019 and into 2020, and that's something that I would love to see happening. And again, of course, not just with North America, but we're seeing new routes as well from the continent as well, I think, that are very encouraging. And from a government's point of view, we're always happy, of course, to support the marketing fund, but also as well our airports, both our main airports and our regional airports, to support them. And last week again, for example, we saw significant support on the current expenditure side going to the regional airports. Earlier in the year we saw significant capital expenditure as well to support those same airports, and that is very important when we look at our key principles of improving seasonality and regionality. We need to have strong routes in and out of the regional airports as well as in and out of Dublin, and that's something that is very much part of our core government policy objectives, and we want to try to do everything we can possibly do to support that. And just to conclude, I suppose, just to thank our partners in the media here, who are always very kind and very willing to highlight our work and show our work, and where there's an opportunity for the overall Team Ireland effort to be sold internationally. Your assistance is always appreciated as well. We couldn't operate without that. And just to say this, we have an awesome responsibility going into 2019 to not only to protect but to enhance those 260,000 jobs and to create more. But I'm confident that we can do that, and very much look forward to the challenges, but also hopefully the successes that are ahead in 2019. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks very much, Minister, and thanks for coming along today, taking time out of your busy schedule. So look, I'm happy to open it up to the floor. Any questions you might have?
Corry from Travel Extra. Niall, last year you were telling us you were going to get 10.8 million visitors. Were you just being cautious, or did things go enormously right for you in the meantime?
Well, look, we take stock, every year, and we always do that, through the course of the year. We use Oxford Economics in terms of economic forecasting, but factors do come along sometimes that work out better than you thought. And I suppose the factors that worked better than we thought were in North America, particularly with the connectivity. I think the Aer Lingus expansion there has been significant, and it's been really, really positive. And what we're seeing as well is that where Aer Lingus are, promoting Europe from North America to some extent during the winter months, it's sustaining routes that wouldn't exist on their own to Ireland. So on routes from, for example, Boston and Dublin, 50% of that traffic transits on to Europe. But if that didn't happen, the route probably wouldn't exist. So I think that's been much more positive. And the air access into Europe was more positive than we thought as well. So two big factors there.
Well, what has your research told you would be the immediate impact of a hard Brexit or a no-deal Brexit? You said you done a lot of research on over in the UK. Overnight, what would be the immediate impact there?
Well, in relation to Brexit, we've carried out through Red Sea polling the mood of British consumers in relation to Brexit. We didn't pose the question in relation to no-deal Brexit because, to be quite honest with you, the British take 70 million trips abroad every year, and they'll probably continue to do that. What they are saying through our research is that Brexit has not really made any difference to their intention on taking a holiday or where they will take it. The currency was the biggest factor so far. We've seen about a 20% depreciation in the value of sterling. So value for money really is the main watchword as we head into 2019. And from the point of view of deal or no deal, we'll have to see how things unfold. We'll do another round of research probably in January, and we'll see how the vote unfolds. But we're encouraged by the fact that there is a deal between the European Commission and the UK now on the aviation side of things, which is one of the major factors that would have impacted on our business. But people will still take holidays next year. The British will still holidays in numbers next year.
You don't think that a hard Brexit would have any impact whatsoever on the numbers of British people overall?
The economic climate will have an impact. So if the hard Brexit was to result in any severe shock, that may impact in the immediate term and where to take a break. But it's not likely to affect their longer term holidays. It's more likely to impact on places where they'll take shorter breaks.
I think something that's important to add to that as well is that I think Tourism Ireland deserve great credit for their market diversification strategy in recent years, so that we are, I think, in as prepared a position as we can be in terms of our dependence on the British UK market. That said, we're not giving up on Britain. We've redoubled our efforts in terms of marketing through campaigns like Wonders of the Wild Atlantic Way, Called the Wild, and now the new campaign as well. But I think the market diversification campaign and effort has proven to work, and at the same time, we are seeing British figures actually recovering slightly in 2018, which is good to see. Obviously, immediately after the vote in 2016, we saw a plummet of 5%, similarly in 17, but at least in 18, we've seen that rot stopping, and we've seen a slight climb. Now, we're not back to where we would naturally be, or would naturally like to be, certainly, but I think a lot of that work comes down to the work that Tourism Ireland have done on the ground in Britain as well.
And I suppose just the thing that I'm trying to get at is there a contingency plan for an overnight contingency plan for a no-deal Brexit, which would result in a total collapse of sterling? I mean, which would have an immediate impact.
Well, obviously, there are all sorts of scenarios that may present themselves, and in tourism, you always have to be prepared for overnight events. I mean, I remember working in Killarney in the hotel industry in the morning of 9/11, and it was early September, and we expected at least another month and a half of a season after that. It was over. That was it, overnight. And ash cloud happens, foot and mouth happens. These things happen.
Sure.
The tourism industry is resilient. The tourism industry has proven time and time again that shock events that are either predicted or not predicted, come and go. We still don't know what March 29th is going to look like. That is one of the problems.
There is a plan for it, isn't there?
The whole of government approach to this has been one that has focused very strongly on trying to maintain as much order as possible in the event of that happening. But again, we're very much talking about a hypothetical situation here. We don't know exactly what is going to happen. We don't know how things are going to look in a month's time, never mind in 3 months' time. But we are in a position now, though, that we're not as dependent on the British market as we were maybe some time ago. And you look at the figures and look at where they're coming from in terms of the 11.2 million breakdown. We see the majority of people are actually coming from outside of Britain, and that is something that is reassuring. It doesn't mean that we're giving up on Britain, as I said, but it is something that leaves us less exposed. That said, we want to ensure that we are as successful as possible in the British market into the future, whether that is in the context of a hard Brexit or a softer Brexit. And we're doing our best to ensure that whatever may come, the transition will be as smooth as possible.
And the plan that we presented when we launched our marketing plan last month is predicated on a deal being done. And what we said was that if that changes, our plan would have to change. So just like, for example, I came into this company after 9/11, when things changed dramatically, in the event of a no-deal Brexit, it will mean shifting emphasis onto the likes of North America and mainland Europe, longer staying, higher spending visitors. It's not to the detriment of Britain, by the way, but we're more likely to put a bigger emphasis on those markets that deliver higher spend and longer stay. And in relation to that, we'll have to just see how the deal works out in January. But we're well positioned and well prepared in relation to what we would need to do. And in relation to a currency change, by the way, it affects the Eurozone as a whole, not just Ireland. It's important to bear that in mind. It's a whole 27.
Minister, would you be concerned about capacity issues in Dublin, possibly stunting growth there, and obviously the reliance anyway on the likes of Airbnb?
The Dublin capacity issue has been one of concern for some time now. That's why one of our key focuses is actually on improving the regionality of Irish tourism and to rebalance Irish tourism. That said, I was talking to one operator, it resonated with me. He described an itinerary that he has for Ireland without Dublin as being like Hamlet without the prince. Certainly in the case of first-time visitors to Ireland. So you're always going to have a demand for Dublin, but what we're trying to do is strengthen experiences like the Wild Atlantic Way, Ireland's Ancient East, the new Hidden Heartlands experience, and from a Tourism Ireland point of view, of course, as well, then there's the Northern Ireland element, with, for example, the Causeway Coast, the Belfast experience, Derry, and everything that's on offer there as well. I think by trying to do that and by trying to improve the seasonality then as well, and that's why campaigns like the Wonders of the Wild Atlantic Way and the Call of the Wild were about, trying to get people here not just in June, July and August, but actually throughout the year. And I've always maintained actually that our offering for example, in the month of March or April, on the Wild Atlantic Way is, as if not even more exhilarating as it is in July and August, because I've always maintained that, for experiences like that, the wilder the better, It's, you're not coming to Ireland generally to get a suntan, even though this year you would have. But, you're coming there for the ocean, for the mountains, for the scenery, for the activities, for the food, for the culture, for the pubs, for the people, for all the stuff that makes Ireland an attractive destination. And you don't have to do that at peak season. And we're really trying to push that through our marketing to get people to visit Dublin, certainly, but spend more time in other parts of the country than they have been doing traditionally, and to do it at the other times of the year as well. The capacity issue is a good problem to have, but I'm also conscious that, because it means that we're actually doing well on visitor numbers. I'm also conscious, though, as well, that it exposes us to potential reputational risk if we don't maintain value for money, and if we don't continue to be competitive. And there are always cases where you have clear examples of people who are not offering competitive prices. That said, you sometimes see the highlighting of those uncompetitive prices. Very often, though, there are very competitive prices as well, and I think we need to be highlighting those more. But we need extra hotel beds. That's very clear. There are some coming, but they're not coming quickly enough, and we need to see an acceleration of that. And that's something that I am concerned about as well. But again, I think if we can get the regionality side of things, focused on and delivered on, which is what our policy is very much about, and what our strategy is about, I think that will alleviate the part of that problem.
And Ireland's Hidden Heartlands has yet to have an international launch. It was launched to the domestic market this year, and it'll be launched to the international market in 2019.
Yeah, I think the thing about them is, they're fledgling. I suppose they're still relatively new experiences. I mean, the Wild Atlantic Way is a new experience as well. It's only a few years old, and that has proven to be an outstanding success. The thing about it is, look, we always had the Atlantic, we always had the wilderness, and we always had the waves there, but we never just linked it up into one experience. Since we've done that, it has been transformational, I think, in terms of the impact on tourism along the western seaboard. I live on the Wild Atlantic Way myself, and in one of the non-traditional places, between Killarney and Dingle, that people used to drive through traditionally, and now people are stopping, now people are walking through it, now people are staying overnight. It's been an overwhelmingly positive experience. With that positivity and success come also capacity challenges at peak times, but also as well infrastructural challenges in terms of traffic, parking, management of it. And that's why I think the increase in the budget was very important as well, not just in terms of our marketing side of the house, but also in terms of the tourism development side of the house. So to allow agencies like Fáilte Ireland working with local authorities to carry out the types of works that are necessary to facilitate that huge increase in numbers. But in relation to the Ancient East, I mean, we've pumped a lot of capital expenditure in there through Fáilte Ireland, particularly during 2018, to develop experiences and to develop attractions. And these experiences are ones that I think we need to be looking at the longer term picture. We need to be looking at where we want to be 10 years, 20 years from now with these experiences, and we want these to stand to our children, to our grandchildren. And I think that we've got off to a very, very good start. They will require work, they will require development in terms of attractions, in terms of capacity, in terms of, in the case particularly of the Hidden Heartlands, actually accommodation, stuff as basic as accommodation and food, because it's a non-traditional tourism region. But I think that long term, this is certainly the way to go to develop these strong brands. And I'm very pleased with success to date, and the feedback from Fáilte Ireland is very positive in that front as well.
Okay, anybody else?
Is Jump Into Ireland officially gone now as the slogan, and could you explain the thinking behind the new Fill Your Heart with Ireland?
Okay, we'll probably no better man to explain it than our Central Marketing Director, Mark Henry.
So the short answer is yes. Jump Into Ireland lasted us for 7 years, helped deliver record numbers. That was a campaign that was about trying to encourage people to come now, act now, and come here. I suppose Jump Into Ireland didn't fully answer the question, well, why should I? What is it that's in it for me? And what we wanted to do, particularly in an era when people are continuously diverted by devices all the time. Attention is fragmented all the time. We're on, whether it's on for work purposes or on for social media purposes. You know, we more and more value real, genuine experiences, and experiences that touch us emotionally. And the reality is that Ireland can offer that as a holiday destination better than practically any of our competitors. And of course, the Irish people engage with visitors when they're here, and truly the research shows that people will fill their hearts in Ireland and have a better experience here, a better quality experience than they do in competing destinations. So we felt it was a good, bold claim to make, and yes, for the next 5 years at least, we'll be filling people's hearts all over the world.
Just want to say, with our Swedish couple, what was the thing that went off the Richter scale with their heart more and stuff?
Go ahead, Mark.
In truth, everything you saw, by definition, was chosen because it either raised their heart or it calmed their heart. So in fact, lying in the boat, for example, in front of Balmoraby was an instance where the heart rate of our couple relaxed. Below,
Where was this at?
in Balmoraby, so it was a shop there around the lake in front of that. But in all instances, literally everything that you saw was because their heart was elevated or raised above their average level.
And now the phasing in, Mark, it's over a number of weeks. Like we jump into Ireland, will be gradually over the next number of weeks phased out. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So thanks to the Minister's investment, we'll have the opportunity to launch Fill Your Heart with Ireland this week in the United States, in Britain, France and Germany this week, the day after Christmas in the United States, and then into the new year to roll out around the world. So some of our markets, people don't choose their holidays close at home until into the spring of next year. So between literally this week and March of next year, Fill Your Heart will roll out.
I think one thing that's very important to add as well, just want to compliment Mark and his team as well and the work that they do, but I think it's a big story is the fact we're getting back on mainstream television in Britain. And again, in the context of the question that you just asked as well, we haven't been on the telly in Britain for a number of years, and we're getting back on there now, which is very encouraging, it's very positive, and I think will help in terms of our figures due to the economic situation. Unfortunately, that was one of the areas where we weren't able to invest in recent years, and it's just very exciting for everyone, I think, in the industry to see that we're going to be on television, on mainstream television, as well as keeping the other platforms going as well, and that's something I think is very encouraging, and I would hope that it will lead to stronger figures in 2019. But I think it's a bit of a landmark for us. Again, it's back to the rightful place that we need to be, but at least it's happening now, and it's something that I would hope we'll start to see the results from very quickly.
Okay. Well, can I take the opportunity to thank you all for coming along? I wish you all a very happy Christmas.